The all-new Maxxis Dissector here behind me was dubbed a mini assegai by a lot of Pinkbike readers, and that's because it has that 2-3-2 pattern, so it shares a similar resemblance, but it's far more versatile. And that's because Maxxis intended this to be a fast-rolling, dry conditions, hard-pack tire, but it goes well beyond its intended use. The new Dissector name doesn't come along with an additional suffix or a secondary number like the Minion DHR2 does. But when you look at both of the tires together, you've got the old one on the left and the new one on the right. They are distinctly different. The first thing you'll notice is that there is no longer this huge gap between the center knobs and the shoulder knobs. So this increases sort of the predictability of leaning the tire into a corner. You no longer have that vagueness where you need to really lean the bike over and get that side knob to hook. Sometimes there can be a gap or lack of traction there. That is totally gone. The other is that the center knobs are more spread out as well. So they've done away with this one, the old one, and they've gone to this 2-3-2 repeating pattern we see in a lot of newer style tires. And yeah, that just makes the tire so much more predictable. You have contact and traction throughout the turn. Before we get too far into the ride impressions of the Dissector, we should talk about the specs. And for the sizing, there is just one option, 29 by 2.4. Now I'm sure the 27.5 crowd feels left out in this, but it kind of makes sense to me. If you're looking for a fast rolling tire, you're probably already on a 29-inch wheeled bike, front and rear. So yeah, this kind of makes sense for Maxxis to slim down their SKUs. Also the width, no 2.5 option, and that's because the smaller 2.4 just helps to increase clearance, especially on some frames that have a very tight tolerance. For the casing, you have three options. You've got the lighter Trail Duty EXO, and then moving up a little bit in the security, you've got the EXO Plus, and then the double down casing for longer travel trail bikes and maybe even e-bikes. And then for the rubber, you've got three options as well. You have the dual compound, which uses a 50 and 70 durometer mix. And that's going to be for harder wearing, longer wearing tires where riders aren't looking necessarily for performance, but maybe getting the most out of the life of the tire. And then there is the Maxxis 3C Max Terra, which is the medium grip. And this uses the same rubber as the Max Grip, except there's less of the soft stuff. So this is going to be the most popular choice, I would say, for this tire, especially being a rear. The Max Grip might be better suited as a front because it's definitely going to wear down faster and roll slower. The price of the Dissector varies from 85 up to 116 US dollars. And basically, the stickier or more secure the tire, the more expensive it is. So this one here, the Max Terra EXO Plus, right in the middle of both of those, slots in at $104. Again, that's going to be the most popular choice, sort of blending that mix of performance and longevity and suiting a rear tire best. Of course, the casing type as well as the rubber factor into the weight of the Dissector, and this ranges between 950 grams all the way up to 1,205 grams. Somewhere right in the middle, you would find the EXO Plus Max Terra. That one comes in at 1,030 grams. If you want to bump up to the Max Grip in that casing, you can tack on another 20 grams. That puts the Dissector slightly higher than some of the other mid-weight casing tires from, say, Specialized or Schwalbe, which are under 1,000 grams. But my success with the Maxxis EXO Plus casing has definitely been more reliable than those other two options. So I think that 100 grams or so is probably worth the extra security you get with that. Setup was straightforward. I've used these casings on a variety of bikes in the past, and for the test bikes, we had numerous different rims with different tolerances and never had any issues inflating them. Never noticed any of the sealant coming through or weeping through the sidewalls either. And for the bikes, yeah, it was everything from longer travel trail bikes up to 160 forks and 150 rear, down to 130, 125 rear travel bikes. So yeah, that's kind of what the Dissector fits. For the longer travel ones, I was using stickier and heavier duty casings, but kind of got a mix of all different casings and compounds, both on the front and the rear wheels. Test conditions were a mix of everything from dry hard pack and dust over top to more shaly conditions and then even some wetter fall conditions here in Squamish. So got a good taste for everything. Okay, climbing. So the first thing I noticed about the Dissector was how much faster and lower rolling resistance that it had versus a DHR2. And that was a straight swap onto a bike that had the same casing and rubber type on a Minion DHR2. So a good comparison there, same trails, same type of terrain. And in terms of traction, yeah, it's not gonna lug up things like a DHR2 would. It doesn't have those widely spaced paddles, but I think for what it is, it's very predictable. It covers a wide variety of terrain, loose over hard pack, even slick rock, it does quite well. Certainly when it does get a bit wet, depending on the rubber type, you will notice, yeah, a little bit more movement there. It doesn't have those wide paddles again to lug up things and tractor up like the DHR2 would. I think the big takeaway there is the rolling speed and efficiency that you gain from that while climbing. When we're talking about cornering, well, like I said, I use this on the front and the rear. We'll start with the front, and yeah, I'm gonna compare it to an assegai because that's what people are calling it, the mini assegai. It is not that. The assegai has this really, really cool characteristic where the side knobs allow you to engage in the corner first and then hook and hold, and makes that transition almost seamless. It's really confidence inspiring, for a lack of a better term, but it really lets you lean into pretty much any type of corner, especially those gravelly, loose ones over hard pack. The Dissector will do that, but you have to be a bit more gentle in how you lean it in. The side knobs are lower than the assegai, and it's not quite as wide, being a 2.4. So yes, it's consistent in the lean in, but it does have a bit more of a roll to it, and it does stand taller, which brings me to the rear aspects of that tire in terms of the cornering. Again, you will have to lean it over, so if you're doing any sort of trail braking on and off camber, it does feel like the tire is maybe a bit more pointed or narrow. But again, it's not a bad thing. It's just not going to be up to the specs of those gravity-based tires like the assegai and the DHR2. I spent a ton of time on this tire this summer. From our field test recently down in Bentonville, Arkansas, where we were using the EXO Plus front and rear on trail bikes. We had the Max Grip up front and the Max Terra out back. Obviously, the Max Terra held up really well to those sharper, porous rocks down there. And the Max Grip up front, yeah, didn't really show any signs of undercutting. This one in particular is a Max Grip. It's been on the back of a Santa Cruz Tallboy, and it's been on some longer 3-day missions and has seen plenty of descending in sharp, shaly conditions. So yeah, there is some signs of undercutting, but I think this is expected from a Max Grip tire as a rear, especially on those long descents. It's really getting torched, but it's holding up well. And yeah, we haven't seen too much chunking or anything else going on there. So impressed with the durability of the casing and the rubber. No flats, no sidewall pinches. Could be a game of luck, but yeah, generally overall with those pressures I mentioned before, these have been pretty bomber. Now there are a ton of other tires that stack up against the Dissector. You've got the Specialized Eliminator, the Michelin Force AM, the Continental Xylitol, and the Schwalbe Knobby Nick. Now I've put all the weights and specs for a similar tire against the Dissector in the EXO Plus and the Max Terra Compound. So kind of the middle of the range for all these tires. And I think I would choose the Dissector pretty much any day of the week. And that would just be for its overall balance and predictability. It's a really versatile tire. Even the Max Terra Compound, I would say, is more grippy than Schwalbe's soft compound on the knobby nick. I would find that typically I'd run lower pressure in the Schwalbe's to get equal grip. And then that obviously opens up some possibility of flatting. As you can probably tell, I really dig this new Dissector from Maxxis. It's a night and day difference from the old version. Gone is that vagueness in the cornering, the climbing's improved, and it still feels very efficient and fast rolling, which makes it really well suited to these long travel trail bikes as a rear tire option, but also as a duo or just a front on, say, downcountry bikes. You let us know in the comments what type of bike you'd put this on, and if you think there's a better substitute out there, we'd love to hear it too. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.